Thank you. I'm speaking now. Remember my rules. Exercise 3J, we're looking at percentage change. Now, last session we talked about how do we change a proportion to a percentage and then vice versa. Now, out of the two, there's only really two things that you do repeatedly in 3H, 3I, and 3J. Okay, all of it is just simply either multiplying by 100 or dividing by 100, as you can see in these 2 points. Okay, the rest is really going back to your chapter 3 fraction skills. So let's look at the first problem here and see how we do them. Now, there's a logic to it. It's all about changing it to a proportion. So let's begin. Gary buys a ticket for a concert that is $90. Okay, so Gary purchases it for $90. Then, because Gary is unable to sell it or go, Gary then sells it to a friend for $72. Okay, so they bought it for $90. Now they're selling it for $72. First question is, was it a profit or was it a loss?
It was a loss.
Now, how do we know?
Because he sold it for less money than for what he got it for.
Okay, so how much do we lose?
He lost $18.
18. And how do you work out the 18?
You subtract.
What do you do? You, Mateo, you were speaking?
Subtract to the number of what he sold it to.
Very
From
good.
80 to what-
No, you're right. Okay, now I'm going to give you just restructuring what you said there to put it into place so that you know what you should work out, especially when it's profit and loss. Loss is when you're in the negative zone. Profit means when you're in the positive zone, when it's the gain, right? So we know it's $18, but we need it to be negative 18. So to make sure that you have a negative 18, we usually split it up into initial, which is what you started off with. Now we started off with $90. That's how much was invested. Then the final amount. So initial versus final. Final is always the after. The after tells you, did you gain or did you lose? Now we can see that we went from $90 to 72, and the change, which is what we're trying to figure out, that's exercise 3J, is called working out the percentage change. So what is the change? Yes, you knew it was $18, but most of you probably did 90 take away 72. The reality is it's actually what you finished off, you ended up with 72. So you got less than what you started off with. So it should be final minus initial, which ends up being 72 take away 90. Not the other way around, because if you do 90 take away 72, it's positive 18. All right, unless you have some logic, then you already know that's a loss. But when you're doing accounting as an example, there's a lot of profits and loss that comes in and out. So if you don't have the signs proper and you don't have it in a particular order, you can get confused whether you're gaining or you're losing. So here, 72 take away 90, that's how you get your negative 18. And the negative represents that you have a loss. So now that you know that you've got a loss, the question is not asking how much you lost, but asking, well, what is the percentage of the loss? Now, just like last session, to work out the percentage loss, we know that we have $18 that we lost, right? So I'm going to put the minus 18 there. Minus $18 out of what? Is it out of 90 or is it out of 72? And in the test, I often see students muck up this question here. And they ask me too. They say, is it 72 or is it 90? And I always repeat the same thing in class. Which one is it? 90 or 72? It's always 90 because this is a projected amount. You don't have the 72 in the future. It's $18 that you could possibly get out of what you currently have. Okay, not there, here. Does that make sense? I'm watching you a couple times. Here we go. So negative 18, it should be out of what you started. And I gave you a formula in our last session. I said it's the change over your initial. Now that you've got a proportion, how do you change it to percentage again? What do you have to do? times it by 100. That's it. Anything to a percentage, you just need 100 of them. That's what percent means. It's every 100. So I just need 100 of them. This is all you have to do. That is the only part of the calculation that you can do on a calculator. You can do it by hand. But that is what we're assessing. We just want to check, do you understand how to convert a proportion to a percentage? From here, it depends on your fraction skills. So if you did exercise 3B back in like 2.5, 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago, that's what we're practicing here. So let's see, what two numbers can we simplify? Can I please have, let's go, Willem, what two numbers can you see that we can simplify? 18 and 90. What is the highest common factor of 18 and 90? So a number that can be divided into 18 and a number that can be divided into 90. Let's go with Attila. Not sure? Let's go with Josh. What do you think? 18 and 90. Willem's correct. There's a number that goes in 18 and 90. What's the number? Not sure? Let's go, Mateo. Can you figure out the number?
What is it?
What number goes in 18 and 90? 9. Very good. 9 is one of them, or if you didn't know that, notice they're both even numbers. You can keep halving until you can't. Make the number smaller, yeah? So here, I can see that there's a 9. How many 9s in 18? 2, so this becomes now 2. How many 9s in 90? 10. So now you can see it actually becomes negative 2 over 10 times 100. We still have that times 100. Again, I can still see a lot of numbers that I can simplify. Give me another 2. Let's go with Eknor. Which other 2 can you see? 10 and 100. They both have zeros. So one of the hints is that 10 should be able to fit into both. So let's start off there. How many 10s in 10 and how many 10s in 100? Let's go with Ollie. How many 10s in 10? 1. Beautiful. And how many 10s fit into 100? 10. Beautiful. So the answer is then negative 2 over 1 times, instead of 100, is now 10. But we know that negative 2 over 1 is the same thing as writing negative 2. So what is negative 2 times 10? What's negative 2 times 10? Let's go with Xavier. Negative 2 times 10. What does that give you? Negative 20. But remember, we're working for percent. So if you don't put in the percent, I will penalize you. Either you put negative 20% or you say 20% loss. You need to tell me what is the negative represent. Okay? You can't just say 20%. I need to understand in that context, what are you doing? I'm going to zoom out so you can see. So what do we do? First, find the change. Now you can find the change. I know you know the difference, but I want to see that negative. So to get that negative, it's final minus initial. Mateo, please don't speak while I'm speaking. You speak again, I'm going to send you outside for a bit, yeah? Yes? Thank you. That's your change over initial to change to a percentage you times 100. This step that you're seeing here, this is a repetition of exercise 3B. So if you've done 3B or if you've been practicing chapter 3, this is what we do over and over. 3B and C is your core skills. If you couldn't do 3B and C, then this part is where it stumps you. Yeah, the next parts are all decimals. So this is the fraction bit that you need to practice. Let's try one last example for today. Here we go. Let's go down. It's the same idea. We're going to do change and then change it to a percentage. Okay, so have a go. I'm doing the questions from the exercise book, by the way. So as you're copying it down, it also helps you to do your own exercises. 3J, question 7. So Estelle purchased a piece of sporting memorabilia for $120. 20 years later, she sold it for $900. calculate the percentage profit. So in this case, we know it's a profit. Same thing again. Write out your starting point. So initial, final. What's my initial? Can I please have Hamza? What was the initial amount? 120. Very good. What was the final amount? Let's go with Belinda. 900. So we went from $120 to $900. Let's work out the change. The change is from your initial, change is from your final minus what you started off with. So you're trying to work out what 900 minus 120 is, and what is 900 take away 120? Let's go with Charlie. 780, beautiful. So $780, notice it's positive, hence profit, because it's positive means you're not losing. So you gained a $780. We want to know what this is as a percentage. How do we change it to a percentage? We need a proportion. What is the proportion? Let's go with Adele. It's 780 over. Beautiful. It's always what you started off with. It's what you actually have. The 900 is future tense, so we don't know that yet. 780 out of 120, that's your proportion. How do you change a proportion to a percentage? Yi-Chen, what do you do? Times by 100, that's it. This is how you change it to a percentage. So all we did was find the change. Get your proportion. If you get your proportion right, it's just times by 100 to get your percentage. Now from here, if you struggle, you can use a calculator just to help you get the answer. But I do want you to practice 3B. Okay, this is all 3B. It's everything to do with multiplying, dividing, simplifying fractions. Here we go. Let's see if we can pick out what is a common factor of 780 and 120. I notice they both have 0, so the highest common factor, or one of the common factors, must be 10. Let's divide it by 10 first. Every time you see zeros at the end of each one, you should think about tens. So let's divide it. How many tens fit into 780? Let's go with Zara. Zara Jones? How many tens fit in 780? 78. How many tens fit into 120? 12. Very good. So we've made the fraction smaller by now making it 78 out of 12, and we still have the times 100. Numbers are smaller now, but still, we can still simplify. What two numbers can you see that you can simplify? Let's go with Xavier. What two numbers do you think? 12 and 100. Both of them are even, is a hint. Both of them are even, so if they're even, what number do we definitely know that can fit in? Attila?
10.
Well, they're not 10 because they don't have 0. If they're even, even means you can split it in two. Twos. So the most obvious is when they're both even, you can divide it by 2. Okay, so let's work it out. Let's half each one. What's 12 divided by 2? 6. 100 divided by 2 makes it 50. So you now make the numbers even smaller.
You can half it again.
You can half it again. Very good, Matteo. So you can see both even numbers again. Even these two are even numbers. You choose which one you want to reduce, but you want to reduce as much as you can. So let's half. Which one do you want to half, Matteo? Is it the 78 and 6 or 50 and 6?
Oh, 50 and 6.
50 and 6. All right, let's do that. So 50 and 6. Let's half that again. Divide by 2, divide by 2.
50 turns into 25 and 6 turns into 3.
Beautiful. So we now got 3, we're 78. Any other numbers that you can fit?
No.
Here's one more.
3. No, you can split into 3.
Which one?
3.
3 with what?
78.
How many 3s in 78?
I don't know. But I just think.
Oh, okay, good. Very good. So it was a hidden one. That's why when I get big numbers like 78 and 50, I would probably do the 78 first, because sometimes the bigger numbers are harder to see. So instead of doing 6 and 50 before, I would have done 78 and 6, and it would have been easier to find out. Yeah? But yes, 3 does fit into both. Now 3 fits in a 3 once, and 3 fits in 78. Again, you can do short division. 3 goes into 7 twice, remainder 1, so you get 18, and 3 into 18 is 6, so the answer is 26. So we got 26 over 1 times 25. All right, that's not a really nice number, so we'll probably use a calculator, or you can do this by hand. Anyone got a calculator? Otherwise, I'm doing it by hand on the side here. Let's work it out. 25 times 26. You guys get 650? All right. All right, team. You get 650. Don't forget the percentage symbol. And that's 3J. Okay, so we currently got 15 minutes left. I don't think, unless you've got your textbook here, if you don't have your textbook, then you can share with someone. But your 15 minutes, remember, Wednesday, you're going to have the half session to work on what you need. Half of the other half session, I do 3I. That finishes chapter 3. Thursday, you get your revision session. Next Wednesday, you'll get your assessment. Make sense? All right.